even with the iPhone SE 2nd gen being discontinued and replaced by the 3rd generation iPhone SE just days ago, it still remains a perfectly solid phone 2 years after its release, as well as being one of the best value phones you could buy when Apple was selling it, as it packed in flagship specs like the A13 chipset for just $679 Australian dollars or $399 US. Although unfortunately, its battery life isn't up to par with the rest of the iPhone lineup or even similarly priced Androids, which was a main deal breaker for many, but we'll get to that. But if you're a minimalist who only really uses their phone for texting, social media, calling, and taking photos, the SE hits the nail on the head. Although, because of the very recent release of a new iPhone SE with 5G and better battery life, the value for money at the moment is pretty awful to buy new, and so hence, I'll be talking more about how it stood the test of time rather than whether you should buy one. And so in this video, I'm going to be giving my thoughts on each aspect of the 2020 iPhone SE from a 2022 perspective. And by the way, if you'd like to see something specific, the timestamps are in the description below. Oh, and I'd also like to give a shout out to my grandfather for lending me the phone featured in this video. If you're watching this, hi Papa, I hope you enjoy my review. So, starting off like always with the design, the iPhone SE2 is a familiar face, with the same basic appearance as the iPhone 6, 6S and 7, and is a dead ringer to the iPhone 8, with its home button, chunky bezels, and 4.7-inch display. And while at first it might seem disappointing and kind of lazy on Apple's part that they just recycled a design from 2014, the reason it didn't get a refresh was for simplicity's sake. This phone, as well as the 3rd generation SE, is aimed towards people who aren't quite ready to say goodbye to the home button. Now, aesthetics are a subjective aspect, but I personally think that there's nothing wrong in terms of styling here. I mean, its appearance isn't mind-blowing by any means, but it's sleek enough so that it looks and feels premium, as it sports a smooth aluminium frame and a glass back. The home button at the bottom though is one of this handset's main attractions, as apart from it being a traditional feature of the iPhone, it also sports Touch ID, something that no iPhone has had since 2017. And because our faces are plastered with masks these days, Face ID hasn't exactly aged well. The sensor also recognizes your fingerprints super quickly, and there's no delay in unlocking the device. Now, the back of the SE is made from glass, which means, yes, it does have wireless charging, although, like literally every glass-back phone, it's fingerprint haven unless you have a case on. Insert phone case video sponsor here. Now, the only thing that actually separates the SE from the 8 on the outside is the positioning of the Apple logo. If it's an 8, it'll be on the top, and if it's an SE, it'll be in the center. So, if you're not sure whether a phone is the 8 or the SE, the positioning of the Apple logo is what you're looking for. Now, when it comes to feel in the hand, the SE is very comfy, and I can definitely see why so many people claim this form factor to be the perfect size. This is absolutely one of the best snug feeling devices to hold, and no matter what size your hand is, it'll fit in there like a Lego piece. It's also thin enough so that it doesn't feel chunky in any way, but the 7.3mm is thick enough so that it feels solid and not so thin that it could bend, cough cough iPhone 6. Same goes for the weight. 148 grams is within the ideal measurements for how heavy a phone should be, but it's also got that slight bit of heft so that it doesn't feel cheap or low quality in any way. Now, usually with smartphones, it's either one or the other, but either one or two-handed use is going to be comfy, and carrying it around is absolutely no trouble either. Turning our attention to the display, the iPhone SE's 4.7-inch panel isn't anything spectacular, but it does the job more than well enough. It sports a resolution of 1334 by 750, along with a pixel density of 326 pixels per inch. Now, I know what you're about to say. Yes, this panel is 720p, and LCD might I add, which at first might seem ludicrous for a phone at this price point, but due to its high pixel density, everything you're viewing is still going to appear really sharp, and discerning individual pixels is only possible if you look really closely. But since it's only 4.7 inches, it's a bit small to be the ideal movie or video watching device, plus the bezels make the experience a lot less pleasant than on an all-screen design. But it's not a disaster by any means. Oh, and the peak brightness on the SE is 675 nits, same as the iPhone 12, so outdoor use isn't going to be a problem. To put it all simply, the display on here is more than fine, suitable enough for the average Joe or minimalist, but not incredible by any means. Moving on to the camera setup, the iPhone SE's minimalism only continues. It sports just a single 12 megapixel rear shooter and a 7 megapixel selfie camera, just like on the iPhone 8. Now the back lens is actually the same size as the one on the iPhone 8, but with the image quality being pretty darn good for this price point, the cameras on here will do the job more than well enough. Now obviously, smaller iPhone 8 size lens equals less light being let in, which equals images not being as crispy as Apple's more expensive iPhones, especially in low light or indoor conditions, but in adequate lighting, you can get some pretty vibrant, professional looking shots. Now 7 megapixels might sound a little on the small side for the selfie camera to be any good, but it's a lot better than it sounds on paper. You can get some very detailed shots on here despite the low megapixel count, although again, it's not going to be as sharp as higher priced iPhones. Now in terms of video recording, the iPhone SE can shoot up to an impressive 4K at 60 frames per second, and believe me when I say it nails this. Like the photo quality, if lighting conditions are good, then it won't be hard to get some pretty impressive footage, but if they're giving you a hard time, it'll be nothing short of grainy, even if you're shooting in 4K. But for the most part, you can shoot some very impressive footage on here, and for this price point, the quality is more than applaudable. Now as for performance, the iPhone SE doesn't fail to deliver phenomenal results, and this is where the value for money really kicks in. It sports the Apple A13 Bionic chipset, the same one used on the iPhone 11 and the 2019 flagship iPhone 11 Pro, as well as carrying 3GB of RAM. Therefore, light tasks that minimalists would carry out often, like texting, calling, and browsing the web, will be buttery smooth, as well as moderate to heavy games not being a problem either. For the price point, the performance you're getting here is pretty much unmatched, and despite it being Apple's cheapest iPhone that they were selling up until a few days ago, its processor is still pretty high-end, and it'll be able to handle anything you throw at it, and will continue to do so for many years to come. And so with all of these amazing capabilities and price tag of just $399 US, you're probably wondering, where's the catch? Well, here it is right here in the battery life department. To be honest, the SE kind of had this coming for it. Small phone equals small battery, and because it has just about the same capacity as the iPhone 6 from 2014, it's not hard at all to drain the SE in a day. Because mobile operating systems used much less power back in 2014, the battery on the 6 was fine, but with software as sophisticated as iOS 15, you're going to be sucking up much more power. In fact, if you're anything more than a light to rarely moderate user, I would highly recommend checking out some other options like the iPhone 11, because the SE absolutely chugs its power. I mean, sure, if you have a battery case or you're always near a charger, the situation is going to be better, but it is definitely worth knowing what you're getting into. In fact, in a battery test conducted by Ultimate iDevice Vids, the iPhone SE only lasted 9 minutes longer than the iPhone 6S from 2015, with both devices on the most recent software. So if you want proof that modern day operating systems don't go well with small batteries, well, there it is. So yeah, it's not going to go down too well if you're a heavy or even moderate user, because the stress of your battery draining so fast is going to give you grey hairs. Now it is worth noting that the new iPhone SE claims to have 2 more hours of screen on time than its predecessor, although we'll have to wait until it's officially released in the coming weeks to see how well it's provided a fix to this issue. And coming back to the concept of the minimalist light user, if you only ever touch your phone to do the essentials, aka not very often, it's unlikely you'll find yourself running low on power much. And so to wrap up this review, the iPhone SE is still a great phone for anyone who is a minimalist and just needs a basic but solid day-to-day iOS handset to make calls on, text, and take photos. Therefore, if you're currently using one, there's really no need for you to upgrade for quite a while. The 2nd Gen SE, as well as the new one, are also solid matches for anyone who isn't quite ready to switch to the all-screen design, and who just want their phone to feel the same as their last one. But again, the iPhone SE 2 is currently pretty terrible value, because the one that just came out is the same price. Obviously, in the coming months, we should start to see the price of the SE2 drop, but in the long run, it's definitely worth going for the SE3 if you're in the market for a new phone, since it claims to sport better battery life, plus it has 5G. For what it is though, the iPhone SE2 is still a solid phone for the minimalist, and if you're using one currently, there's really no need to upgrade, unless of course the battery life is giving you a hard time. If you enjoyed this video or found it useful in any way, please make sure you drop me a like and subscribe to TechSpree for more reviews, insights, and the occasional unboxing. Thank you so much for watching. This is Tom with TechSpree, and I'll see you as always next time.